This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
Hello, football fans, and welcome to the Onside Kick. My name is Ricky Widmer, and as always, I'm joined by the Mark Weber.
Dub them E's.
And I can officially say, Mark, we are, 4 weeks, is it? 3 or 4 weeks away from our divisional previews here on the Onside Kick.
Coming up, and very excited.
This is the one thing where I'm like, okay, in June and July, we're going to do our divisional previews, and now I'm like, wait, I got to go through the month of May now before I can just look at divisions.
Can we get to some football?
It's right now baseball. I know baseball right now. I've been listening to ESPN radio like I always do. They're calling it Baseball Central or the City of Baseball because both our teams are doing well. But man, do I miss some football. And we've got some jam-packed football topics for you on this podcast. We're going to be talking about Melvin Gordon. Can he bounce back this season? Will my Minnesota Vikings be the Super Bowl 51 or L1 or LI Lee, the Super Lee champions? And then we're going to be talking some Oakland Raiders moving possibly to the Sin City. But before we get into all that, I got to take the time to quickly pump our Patreon page. If you support the podcast each and every week and want a little bit extra, you're like, man, I love the podcast, but I wish I could have some more. Go to our Patreon page. If you can give a little bit extra support, we've got some cool rewards and some extra kind of gifts and stuff for you guys for your extra support if you want to do so. If not, you still get everything that you want, like the Onside Kick, and we're going to get right into it. Melvin Gordon had surgery, Mark, on his knee back in January, and I don't know about you. If I am a Charger fan, I'm a little bit worried about this because Melvin Gordon didn't have the best of rookie seasons.
That's why I'd almost say I don't know if I am worried about it because he didn't do very much worth kind of caring about. I'm not really feeling like I'm going to miss out on very much. We had one of the worst rushing attacks in the entire league last year. I'm not that upset about this because we're not missing anything. There was one team that was worse off than we were. That was it. It can only get better from here pretty much, right? You can go one spot lower and that's it. It's got to be better than this. I mean, you're just hoping that something makes him better. Something makes him able to bounce back and be the guy that everybody kind of expected him to be coming out of the draft, being one of the top 2 running backs taken.
Didn't have a single rushing touchdown last season. And if you're like, Ricky, I forgot what Gordon's stats were. Ran for 641 yards, averaged 3.5 yards per carry, 0 touchdowns, and fumbled the ball 5 times. And to me, if I'm the Chargers, I'm taking a serious look. I think that this is the year that Melvin Gordon needs to do something. Because if he doesn't, I'm going to go as far to say that maybe the Chargers in next year's draft, whether it be first round, second round, or further, look at a guy that, hey, you know what? If we suck far enough, if Leonard Fournette, if they're in a position to get Fournette next year, they'll possibly go with him. I think it's going to go that far. Okay, if you don't do good this season, we've got to replace you.
Well, they have to do something, that's for sure. Because the passing game is not what the problem is. The passing game's never the problem for San Diego. Right now, their biggest issue is they can't get the run game going, and then that defense just isn't very good. It's not terrible, but it's not very good either. So they have a lot of work to do. That might be one option and one thing to address it because like we always say with these guys like Tony Romo, Eli Manning's getting to there now, Drew Brees, these are the guys where you got only a few more chances to try and strike gold and get that Super Bowl. You know, Phillip Rivers doesn't have that many seasons left. Not only are they thinking about what are we going to do later on for a quarterback situation, but they got to think about what we can do right now to take advantage of what we do have. And the passing game's great. The defense needs to improve a little bit. But if the defense isn't amazing, that's okay if you have that great run game to make that offense unstoppable.
Well, and I mean, I'm even going to go out there and say that now this doesn't fall completely on Melvin Gordon. This is kind of a Charger thing as a whole, but I just can't help but look at that division right now. And the thing for the AFC West that is going to be the most interesting is the king of the mountaintop is very weak. The Broncos, who last year's Super Bowl champions, winner of the AFC West, they have a huge question at quarterback because they don't have Peyton Manning leading their team.
Nope.
And the guy that is most likely going to take over week 1 is Mark Sanchez. This is a division that, I mean, the Chargers have got to be in there, but you can take Raiders and Chiefs as well. They need to be looking at, hey, we got to get a run game going, support for Phillip Rivers, because this could be one of the only years that you see that window to take the division. You got to strike on it, because who knows what happens. Paxton Lynch develops this year, and then boom, the window shuts next year.
He could be great. Alex Smith is doing well out there. Derek Carr, of course, for the Raiders. You have these, you have the two young guys developing, so you really do need to kind of strike while the iron's hot. I mean, the Broncos are definitely still the team to beat, but it's not like last year where they were just gone with it. They took it because that defense was amazing. The defense had taken a little bit of a step back, of course, because players leaving. And then Peyton Manning's gone too, so you lose that and you're completely starting over because, of course, Brock Osweiler's he's gone too. He's over in Houston, the site of Super Bowl Lee. Just wanted to say Super Bowl Lee again. So I mean, it really kind of is up for grabs. So they need a guy like Gordon to really step up and be who he was supposed to be. You might remember all the way back from the draft previews 2 years ago now. This was the guy I was saying he was the one who was going to do it. Todd Gurley, I was unsure if he could bounce back from his injury issues. But Melvin Gordon, I felt good about him. And then he completely disappointed me last season, just as the Chargers always do. They always disappoint me. But somehow I still have hope for them, just like I do with this one. The question of can Melvin Gordon bounce back and do something in this season, I think he can. Now, part of the reason I think he can is because he only got 600 yards in 14 games. That's fucking terrible. But, no touchdowns at all. That's just awful. But here's the thing. Do I know he's going to do better? I'm not sure. I mean, the offensive line, they got a lot of work they got to do as well. So, San Diego Chargers, I'm not completely convinced that they are going to step up and do it, just like I'm not convinced that Melvin Gordon is, because there's no... Anytime you have hope for the San Diego Chargers, they let you down. So what I'm trying to say is don't have hope.
You had so much hope for them. What was
I thought
it,
they were
2 years ago?
2 years ago and this year. And this past season
You
here.
usually are the Charger fanboy of MVP.
Because they should be really good. They've got everything they need to be great.
They got Phillip Rivers.
They got Phillip Rivers.
The Bolo. They got the Bolo, baby.
And he does love his Bolo, that's for sure. But the team is good. I mean, the defense isn't great, but they're not bad. They're definitely there. When you have Floyd, when you have Allen up there for your wide receivers, you have great options, of course. Antonio Gates might not be what he once was, but he's still a solid force out there. You have everything you need. Woodhead's not the number one guy. Melvin Gordon was supposed to be the number one guy, and it doesn't happen. I mean, you can see right now with the defense being fairly average, not terrible, but not great, with the offense passing attack being one of the best in the NFL. They're just missing one thing. And it doesn't really make complete sense to me why a team in this state was 4-12 last year. A lot of those games they could have won, and they should have been able to win those, but they didn't let themselves do it. A running game will let them do it. And a running game that works well is exactly what the Chargers want, because it'll mask some of those flaws on the defense when you don't let the defense go out there that much.
Here's something I'm going to bring up, and this is an interesting to kind of like the timeline of this injury. Okay, so Gordon has the microfracture surgery they said in January is when he had the actual surgery, and he's expecting to be fully healthy for the start of training camp at the end of July. However, I'm not, as of right now in May, I'm not even like, before we talk about will he bounce back, will he even bounce back to the field? Because Jadeveon Clowney in 2014 also had microfracture surgery. And here's the timeline for Jadeveon. And I know that all cases aren't exact carbon copies, but this could be taken into consideration where September of 14, he gets the surgery. They say, oh, it's 4 to 6 weeks. That's when they thought it was just to repair a meniscus. By the time we get to December 4th, nearly 4 months after he got the surgery, he was placed on IR. Then he didn't even come back to the field until September of 2015. And I know you're saying, well, Ricky, he was placed on IR and he kind of, for the offseason, couldn't play during the offseason because there were no games going on. That's why it took him a full year to get recovered. But the thing I think you can take this into effect, 4 to 6 weeks would be right around the end of, or beginning or middle of February. That's not the case because that's when they thought Jadeveon had the meniscus tear. This microfracture surgery, I'm looking at it, it took him 4 months to be placed on the IR. 4 months from January is right around where we're sitting right now. Would have been last month, actually. And the thing I look at is if it took Jadeveon Clowney a year to get back, is there a possibility through training camp we go, hey, Gordon, you're not starting week 1, and he misses a few weeks to the season? I'm not saying he's going to miss the entire season, but there's even a possibility he could miss some games off the front.
Yeah, for sure. If they gotta kind of, I don't want to say redshirt him because I don't think that's going to be the correct term.
Well, he's not going to be sitting out the whole year.
Yeah, he's going to play at points in the year. But if they have to have a miss, the first quarter, maybe the first half of a season, honestly, it might not be the worst thing in the world. You never want to hear this. You never want to talk like this.
You can't have a miss half the season.
Well,
I'm talking about like a week or two.
Yeah, but if it's a very serious injury, I mean, he just got that surgery in January. Mm-hmm. There's a good chance he could miss quite a bit of time.
I say do it this way, too. You ain't playing the preseason. However, you got to look at it as, do you not play him in the preseason to help the injury, or do you play him in the preseason because he needs that kind of, he needs that game experience because he had such a bad season in his rookie year.
Yeah, and this isn't Adrian Peterson who you can just plug and play. Mm-hmm. This is a guy who needs to get that confidence back going. Like we said, 14 games, only 600-some yards. Not good. We're not happy about that for sure. So, it's interesting. I mean, the beginning of the season isn't terrible. They can afford to not have Melvin Gordon in there for some of these games, like against the Chiefs, against the Jaguars. I know that's an up-and-coming team, but they can still compete for sure. The Colts did not show much last year. The Saints, we don't really know where the Saints are at. Mm-hmm. It's not really until they get to week 5 against the Raiders, then the Broncos again in a couple weeks. That's when they really need to have Melvin Gordon back because they need to be firing on all cylinders in the middle of the season and then again at the end of the season. Mm-hmm. They're really going to need both those two things to be there. Otherwise, this is going to be yet another, 5-6 win season and nothing really to show for it. And you can't have yet another mediocre season if you're the San Diego Chargers.
Well, and another reason why I bring up why Gordon needs to have, to me, he needs to bounce back. This isn't a season of will he bounce back, will he not? He needs to bounce back this season because if he doesn't bounce back, I am telling you that right now the Chargers, and a lot can change whether it's going to be round 1 or round 2, but the Chargers will, depending on where they fall in the draft, be looking at a guy like Fournette if they're early enough, a Dalvin Cook out of Florida State, a Nick Chubb out of Georgia. And I know we're far away from the 2017 draft. There's a lot of things that still play into it. how well the Chargers do for their draft order, how well the prospects do in the season, and can they avoid injury to have a good enough draft stock. Also, depending on what other teams do, there's a lot of variables that you can't predict at this point. But I wouldn't be surprised if Melvin Gordon, whether it's due to injury or just him not being able to perform to the level, if after 2 years the Chargers go, hey, we got to fix this problem, because one point that you made, Phillip Rivers isn't getting any younger, and his window as a quarterback for the Chargers closes each and every year. And I'm not saying like a Phillip Rivers is bad. I'm just saying he's getting older.
Yeah.
Kind of like a Tony Romo for the Cowboys.
You only have so much left in the tank.
And that's why they drafted Dak Prescott. And
Although they really wanted Paxton Lynch.
No, they did.
Jerry Jones has made it clear that he did not really care about drafting Dak Prescott.
And just to go on that, this is now the second time Jerry Jones has missed on a quarterback he really liked. The first one being Johnny Football.
So
now
what's
Paxton
that
Lynch.
tell you about Paxton Lynch?
He's going to be watching the draft from a bar in a couple years?
Apparently.
What, 4 years?
If the pattern continues. Something I want to mention with the Chargers, too, is one reason why they need Melvin Gordon to come back and they need him to hit well, because they can't be in the situation that you're pointing out where they're going to be early on drafting maybe a quarterback,
or
maybe
a
running back in this situation. They can't have that because of Mike McCoy. 3 seasons now. This is going to be his 4th season as the head coach of the San Diego Chargers. 9-7, 9-7, 4-12. He hasn't had success. His first year was probably the best because they actually got to a playoff game, but they have not had success under Mike McCoy. And if they have another year where they're below 500, he's got to go, right? He's got to go because he's not getting it done. You know, he did well in Denver as an offensive coordinator, but he's not doing it as a head coach. That's not good. You're going to be in a situation where soon you're going to need a new quarterback. It's a really good time to do that. If you're early on, get a new coach, let him get his guy that he feels good about. You know, because the GM's going to listen to his new coach about, all right, what kind of quarterback do you want? Because, of course, every year there's going to be a few guys that are considered for number one.
Yeah.
And let this guy choose the one that he wants to have if Mike McCoy's out. Because I say there's been mediocrity for too long in San Diego for the Chargers. If something is not going well, if we're not above 500 in the season, coach has got to go. We got to do something new. We got to try something different.
And plus, on the side of Melvin Gordon, I'm going to throw it out there. For Charger fans that have been around for a while, you are not filling the smallest of shoes when it comes to guys that have played the position of running back for the Chargers. And the reason why I say that is this is a team that in its history did have LT as its running back. It had LaDainian Tomlinson. So to me, that's what I think. Like, if I'm an old Charger fan, I go, hey, I don't think you're going to come in and be the next LT, but you have to be able to put the team on your back like LT did for us as a running back.
Yeah. Well, the Chargers are a team that want to run the ball. They do. I mean, that's the way Charger football works. I say this as a Bears fan. Yeah, Mark Trestman came in here and said, we're going to throw the ball like hell because we got Jay Cutler and we got Brandon Marshall. We can do this. But at the end of the day, we're saying, hey, we're a running football team. We run the football. That's what you want to do. That's what the Chargers want. That's why they want a guy like Melvin Gordon to be able to do that. If he's not that guy, they got to get somebody to do it. But I'm saying, we're not in prediction mode yet. We're not in preview mode yet. But this is a make or break season for guys like Mike McCoy, for Melvin Gordon, for Phillip Rivers. I put Phillip Rivers in there just because he's aging out, basically. But hey, it's now or never. You don't have much left.
Well, I mean, some of the other running backs, Ryan Matthews, when he was with the Chargers, he was a pretty good running back. I mean, Danny Woodhead's been serviceable. Brendan Oliver. It's like, if you're Melvin Gordon, you have to channel what the old guys, I use LT as the main guy because he was arguably the greatest Charger running back ever to put on the Powder Blues. but also when you come out of college and your senior year in college, you have 2,587 yards, an average of 7.5 yards per carry, and 29 tutties.
Yeah.
You better live up to that.
You don't want to be Trent Richardson.
Especially when a team takes you 15th overall, because we all know what Mel Kiper thinks about taking running backs in the first round.
And I agree with Mel Kiper. But you gotta, don't be Trent Richardson in this situation. Don't fall off. Don't be nothing.
I'm going to put it on this way. Zeke has got to be saying, I don't want to be like Melvin Gordon. He was taken even higher than number 15.
Yeah. Well, he's really thinking, I don't want to be Trent Richardson. Yeah. Well, Trent was number 3 or number 2 overall? I don't remember.
I want to say he was 4 because that was the year where the Vikings were right behind the Browns, and we traded with the Browns to swap picks so that we could take Khalil, and then they took Richardson.
So there you go. Don't be Trent Richardson. That's the moral of the story, please.
Yeah, Trent Richardson's with the Ravens now.
Yeah, and he thinks, maybe this will finally be it. I'll finally turn it around.
You're right. He was 3rd overall. But it was okay. That's what it was. It was we were at 3, they were at 4. They traded up to get Richardson, and then we took Khalil.
So Zeke, you're one off
behind him. Yeah.
You got 1 pick worth of less pressure.
Let's be honest. That trade to this day, I sit there and go, why? Because Andrew Luck went, RG3 went. At number 3, I knew we were going to take Matt Khalil.
Yeah.
We were going to take an offensive tackle. We have fucking AP. Why would we even have to take Trent Richardson?
Well, they don't necessarily think you were going to do it. They thought someone would trade with the Vikings. Take him.
Okay.
That's what the thought process was.
I didn't even think that we were trading with anybody.
They should have been glad that, that the Vikings would be willing to trade and let somebody else take that burden off of the Browns' hands. That was the year of awful trades. Trent Richardson trade and RG3 trade.
Yep.
Only to be beaten possibly, we'll see in like 5 years,
by the
possibly beaten
Eagles-Browns.
by Eagles-Brown trade. Because the Browns, of course, always got to be involved with bad trades.
However,
but this case, they're on the good side of it.
Where they're on the winning side.
For once, they do something right.
But we're gonna end this one before we go into our next topic, and we're gonna end it by saying, final answer: does Melvin Gordon bounce back in 2016?
He has to. Yes.
Right now I'm gonna say no. If I'm leaning on it, no, he does not. And the Chargers are looking for a running back.
And a new head coach. Head coach.
What kind of deal? Like, Charger fans, I know you don't want to see this, but me as a non-Charger fan, I think it would work better for your future if you do bad enough, you fire Mike McCoy, get someone in there that can just competently run a team, and then you have the possibility to draft Leonard Fournette in the top 5. Oh, man, I would take Leonard Fournette over Melvin Gordon right now any day.
I will say that someone down in the comment section is going to complain about how we're giving Mike McCoy kind of a bad break. Because he was over 500 twice.
Hey,
last year there were issues.
There have been coaches that have been fired for worse. Yeah, look at
you
Chud.
Can get Chud. Yeah, you can get Chudded. Lovie Smith.
I love when we're on.
He was having things going
path.
well. Things happened. I mean,
Lovie Smith got fired for going 10-6.
Yeah,
because he couldn't beat the Packers.
You could never beat the Packers. Now I always would say, remember John Harbaugh too. Remember the Harbaugh goes to a Super Bowl, AFC Championship games. You get back to college. So Mike McCoy can get fired for 2 over 800s and a 4 and 12. And then 1 more.